Hi, everyone. Joe Buzzello here for salesperson.com. Welcome to this SEL radio video podcast. I have a great guest on, and we're going to introduce her in just a moment. If you're watching this or listening to this anywhere other than selsource.com, go there. There's a lot of great resources. We have a SEL on demand program that's absolutely wonderful. By the way, I'm the author of The CAP Equation and two other books, A Life in Sales and Drawing Circles. I'm not going to show you all of my books, but we have a new book coming out. I'll talk about that in a moment. But I first want to introduce Brandee Justus to you. She's from Southern Indiana, right? Is that?
That's correct.
And I've never been to Southern Indiana. I got to get there to visit you. And we've known each other well and been working together on this initiative for about a year now. And she was, previous to her current position, she was the executive director of a nonprofit. It really kind of molded a lot of what she uses in sales and sales leadership today. She's been in a leadership role in the insurance industry for a Fortune 500 company for just over 20 years, which means she started when she was 18 years old. So that's what that means.
14.
She's a great leader. She's a master salesperson. She's got two beautiful kids. By the way, she's also a CAP Equation certified instructor. She carries a CECI designation. There's only about 20 of those animals running around in the zoo in the nation. So Brandee, welcome. So glad you're on the call.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Good. I'm excited to hear from you. We're going to go deep. And by the way, excuse these little lights coming through the blinds. Never done a video podcast at this weird time in the afternoon in my home office. So we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to move on. Because it's important that we get deep into the subject of a prosperity mindset. So let me tell you how this comes about. We wrote a chapter together, right, in the new book, Winning Sales Attitudes. And it is coming out in just about a month or two. Well, if you're a regular, you'll see it. But what's important is that when I got the first draft of this chapter from Brandee, I started to look at it. I said, boy, there's so much here. And I think we started with like 500 words, and the chapter wound up being 2,000 words.
Yeah.
And I think it could be 5,000 words because it could be 2 or 3 chapters because it's such a great subject. Having an abundancy mindset versus scarcity, having a prosperity mindset versus poverty. So what we do on these, Brandee, you've never been a guest on a video podcast for SEL Radio, but I'm just going to hit you with some questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
And we're going to have this great discussion. I'm going to hit you rapid fire.
Okay.
So if I say prosperity, poverty, I think immediately the saying the glass is either half full or it's half empty. So why is this? Or how is this, and I think I know the answer, but I want to hear from you, and I want to dive into it. Why is this a little more than just glass is half empty or the glass is half full?
Well, I think it just goes a lot deeper than that. People with a prosperity mindset, they don't just believe that the glass is half full. They believe that they can keep adding to that glass and it will continuously overflow. They also believe that if they empty out that glass for some reason, they drink all of that water, they can just go to that natural spring in their backyard and get more. It's not just about being optimistic. It's about believing that opportunities out there really are endless, not just kind of sort of half full. Half full is definitely optimistic. But
this is an incredible word picture. So I think in terms of movies. I have little movies running in my head all the time. Some people think in black and white. I think in color. Some people think in still pictures. I think in movies, little clips.
Right.
And I see this. I saw this movie clip running while you were talking of someone pouring, like a waiter pouring into a glass and the glass overflowing and you chugging it down and water reappearing. So there's a waiter someplace in our life. If we invite the waiter over to our table and he'll just keep pouring.
Exactly.
And that could be water. Could that also be beer?
Anything.
Subject for,
Whiskey, whatever your choice is. It just keeps coming, whatever it is.
Super Bowl Sunday's coming up, so it will be beer. So it's so much more than, well, it's half empty, it's half full. It's a mindset of, if I lose an opportunity today, another opportunity or two more opportunities will make themselves evident tomorrow if I'm looking, if I'm tuned into that. Is that kind of?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the opposite is true also. You know, those with a poverty mindset or who are operating from a space of scarcity, they don't see that glass only as half empty. They see it as half empty with a hole in the bottom, you know, that, that there's just no way to keep anything moving, so
What
to
is,
speak.
I think it's a Peanuts character. Is there a Peanuts character? I could be going crazy. In fact, many people tell me I have already gone crazy, but there's a Peanuts character with a cloud over his
Yeah,
head.
Pigpen. Yeah,
Is that Pigpen?
yeah.
Or I think of Eeyore.
Yeah, Eeyore is my favorite example of someone who's looking at the world through a scarce view, for sure.
Now, I'm gonna give away what's in the chapter. In fact, we've co-wrote a couple chapters in this great upcoming book, Winning Sales Attitudes. But in this particular chapter, Prosperity Mindset, you give an example, a very real example. You're a master salesperson. You're a master sales leader and trainer. You love being in the field. You love showing people how to go into the business community and make, and cold calls aren't dead, right? You show people how to make cold calls, and
Right.
I still make cold calls. I cold call on CEOs to invite them into one of our high level programs with Advance, and so I'm still right there in the trenches with everyone that I mentor and teach and coach as well. So you have people out in the field, and in the book, you talked about the stark contrast between someone who came back after a day of work and the glass was, completely empty with a hole in the bottom, and someone else who
Right.
was overflowing, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And tell us a
And
little bit about, if you can, tell us about how they viewed their sales territory that day, because I think it's a very interesting real example.
right. And what's ironic is that everyone that I've ever trained pretty much has the same first day, first week, right? They're out there and they're terrified and it's out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Um, and they're there, the whole point of what they're doing is to interrupt somebody and change their priorities, which that is not an easy task, but that's the reality. So sometimes people come back from that given day and they're done. They have already decided that the market is saturated. Everyone is mean. This isn't for them. They don't have the right, they don't have the right personality, whatever the case may be. When in reality, of the, whatever it is, 25 approaches they made, their ratios are no different than anyone else. They walked through 25 doors. They only talked to maybe 5 decision makers. Of those 5 decision makers, they probably got 3 hard no's. That's 3 out of 25 hard no's. But that person with the poverty mindset turns that into all I heard was no. Where conversely, somebody with a prosperity mindset turns that into, wow, out of 25 leads, I've still got 22 left, and 2 of them are warm. Thank God those 3 told me no, because now I can add new ones in their spot tomorrow and I can keep moving. So we see that time and time again. And I love when someone who, has been in an outside sales role for 6 weeks tells me they're burnt out. Well, you were burnt out before you ever started.
Yeah.
If that's the case, because understanding, again, those statistics and that numbers game and being able to put a positive spin on that as opposed to a detrimental one is what makes people successful.
So let's go a
So
little
it's about,
So yeah, this is interesting. Again, the example that you drafted from your experience, I think any of us have had 20 times over. We've been there. We've had Eeyore, and we've had that very exciting new sales rep or agent that shows up and says, "Hey, I got some no's. I got a few maybes. I even scheduled an appointment today, and they're overjoyed,
Right.
and their
Right.
cup is
Right.
overflowing. So let's go deeper here for a second. What is your position on this? Do you think that people naturally gravitate? Is there some kind of natural gravitation to one side or the other?
I do. I think especially when someone makes a career move that is outside of the norm, they are launching a new business or they're going into a 1099 role, anything that all of their friends and family are looking at them saying, you're crazy, it's so risky, people fail more than they succeed. I think what happens is that fear of failure takes over. So right out of the gate, they're justifying their failure by having that poverty mindset.
Right.
If the market is saturated, then it's not anything I'm doing that's causing me to fail. And I think it's really important to make a conscious decision to find the opportunity everywhere and to always be able to see the big picture, to realize that maybe it truly was a horrible day. Maybe you walked in 25 doors and you got shot down 12 times, but there are probably more than 25 doors left on the other side to walk in. And I think that conscious decision is so important. You had mentioned in my introduction that I was an executive director for a nonprofit. And I was in that role for about 5 years, where I was overseeing fundraising, which was really fun, exciting, black tie events, all outings, all of that. And we were raising all kinds of money. But the flip side of that was that I also oversaw client services. And we were working with hundreds, thousands actually, of families that had children that were seriously, if not terminally ill. So that was a role where my team and I had to find the bright side of everything, right? And we had to look at everything that we were doing as time well spent to fund research, to fund services, whatever it was. But it really, again, took a conscious effort some days to stay positive there. And I think that set the stage for my career in sales because, no matter how bad I get beat up in the sales arena, nobody's literally losing their life for it.
Right.
So it's all about that perspective and that ability to see the big picture and find the opportunity in everything.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we just take ourselves and our work too seriously.
Right.
And that's a good warning sign that you're actually going crazy.
Yeah. Well, and we, as new salespeople, not only do they take their work seriously, they think they take themselves seriously. They think that everything that happens in the field is a direct reflection of them.
Yes.
When really, in the beginning of their career, they have so little influence. I mean, there may be people they hit it off with or people that they don't. But in most organizations, when someone's starting out, they're not really even allowed to speak beyond setting an appointment. So, I was in the car not too long ago with someone who's fairly new, and we got really lambasted at a prospect. And we got in the car and I was laughing, and this was a young woman, and she said, "Why do you think this is funny?" And I said, "Well, it's not that I think it's funny. It's just that my career does not depend on what just happened in there. And I know that you think yours does, but we're going to go to 15 more places today. And I guarantee you that's not going to happen 15 more times. But I know you're sitting in your seat thinking, probably should throw in the towel if that's how this goes."
The difference is, and we had this happen recently, my partner and I were in a meeting. We had a guy in a meeting who was just so negative and so shut down. We walked out, we just started laughing. It's like, can you just believe that guy? So here's I think what's happening. Their frame of reference is right here, a week, a month, 3 months.
Right.
And our frame of reference is, well, it's out of the picture. It's way out here someplace.
Exactly.
And so to us, it's just a blip. To them, it's gigantic.
Right. But that's why we can see the opportunity, right? Because we know that there's so much more than that one place. You know,
Right.
God forbid it's somewhere that they've called on 3 or 4 times, and then that 5th time is when they get fried.
Yeah.
It's,
Well,
it's hard.
it's to me, it's this kind of stuff when it happens in the field. To me, it's just great entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. We wrap up,
Mm-hmm.
and they're similar, but they're different. So upon a prosperity versus poverty, easy for me to say, prosperity versus poverty mindset. How does it play out first for the salesperson? How does it speak to what kind of career they're going to have, what kind of results they're going to have? And then answer the second part of the question, how do those 2 different things play out as you, as a sales leader, look at your team?
Okay. Well, I think for that salesperson starting out, it really sets the pace of their career and somewhat defines them early on. Again, when someone believes that there's boundless opportunity, a couple of things happen. First and foremost, they're not afraid to take chances, and coupled with that, they're not afraid to make mistakes because, again, they're not living and dying by every deal. So they have emotionally, they're casting a much wider net, which just allows them a lot more freedom. And I think when they understand and take advantage of that freedom is when they see true success. When someone is operating from a poverty mindset, a lot of their decisions are based on fear. It's much more about what could go wrong than what will go right.
Yeah.
And that tenses them up. And their prospects sense that, and they don't get those strong results because of it. You know, in today's market, it doesn't matter what you're selling, people are buying authenticity, and they don't want someone who's faking it till they make it. They want someone who truly believes in what they're doing, and part of that is believing that they can be successful at it, I think. So it definitely influences everything from, you know, what somebody is telling their spouse when they walk in the door at night about how good or bad their day is, but ultimately it certainly impacts a paycheck as well. And then from a leadership perspective, you know, the definition of leading is influencing people. So of course, whichever side of that mindset you're operating from, your team will sense that, and they'll definitely mimic it as well. So it's the teams that are led by people who have total faith in their team and know that, you know, the sky is not even the limit for their team. Those are the teams that perform because that view of abundance and endless possibility is what is instilled in the members of that team. And we attract what we give off, right? So if we believe that the possibilities are there and that opportunities will find us as long as we're doing the right things, then that in reality actually happens. And I've experienced that, and I've seen people on my team who have changed their mindset and watched their business completely change because of that.
Yeah, and it's critical that at some point we challenge as a coach, a mentor, and leader. It's critical that you and I at some point catch it, hopefully early,
Right.
and we challenge someone to be aware of the difference between the inner voice and the outer voice when they're in poverty, they're living in scarcity, and then the
Right.
difference of how they look, feel, and sound, even the countenance on their face, their body language, when they're living in abundance or poverty. So at some point, or prosperity.
Right.
There I go again, confusing those two. They're very different. So at some point, we have to step in. We have to be strong enough as a leader to step in and challenge them. If you're an entry-level salesperson watching or listening to this podcast, you have to go to a coach, a mentor, someone in your hierarchy, your upline. Watch a great video before you go out in the field. Find motivating. I have 3 or 4 videos. If I watch them, you know, I can go out and I just want to rule the world and hunt and gather and kill. So whatever, it could be a music. I have songs that I can listen to that just uplift me. But let me ask you this question. Is it possible for a commission-only salesperson to even make it long-term if they can't move from a poverty to a prosperity mindset?
For my definition of make it, definitely not. You know, what I typically see when someone can't get out of that poverty mindset is they may stay in that role for years, but it's for all of the wrong reasons. You know, they're staying in that role because they like the flexibility. They're not making any money. You know, the idea of doing something independent is to be able to control your own destiny, right? And I see people who just lower their expectations. You know, I had a guy one time at the beginning of the year told me that he was buying a BMW that year. Come hell or high water, he was going to do whatever it took. And about September, I overhear him in the office talking about how he's looking at used Honda Accords. And I knew at that point I knew before I overheard that conversation, there was no BMW coming that year because he wasn't doing the work. But when I pulled him aside and I said, man, what happened? You know, I was so excited for you and you had this big goal. And he's like, oh, it'll get me from point A to point B just as easily. And I thought, I mean, that's a living picture, right? Of how his mindset, he just lowers expectations to match his attitudes. And that's the last thing that you want to do in a role like that. I think that commission salespeople work way too hard to not make it. I always say that you can work this hard to make $50,000 a year, and you can work this hard to make 150. So why are you stopping somewhere in between?
Yeah, it's kind of exponential as you get better and you think better and you fill your pipeline. Just a little more effort doesn't get you here. It kind of gets you here. It's a
exactly
curve.
Exactly. But you have to be able to see that and envision that for yourself and go after it. And that poverty mindset doesn't allow you to do that because you're always worried about, again, what's going to go wrong instead of what could go right.
A prosperity mindset versus living in poverty and operating from scarcity. So important for a salesperson, equally important for a sales leader to recognize this, think that way, his self or herself, and coach to that and mentor that and challenge people to change their thinking. I was always a very positive guy. There were times I had more faith than others, but I always had some degree of faith and some degree of confidence that I could go out. I wasn't the smartest tool in the shed, but I could go out and outwork anyone. And I also have a great sense of humor, and everything, you know, I think my sense of humor is a survival gift. I think I could, you know, I'm that guy that whistles through the graveyard. So that's taken me a long way.
Just in case any ghosts are looking for you, they can find you easily if you're whistling.
Yes. I am so happy that you came on, that you're so giving of your time to talk about this chapter in our new book. Isn't that exciting to say our new book is coming out?
I'm so excited. Yeah, I cannot wait.
And we're excited about the release of that book. But again, if you're watching this anywhere, listening to this anywhere except SEL Source, SELsource.com, that's where you go. Again, a lot of free resources. We have some paid programs as well if you're really serious and you want some coaching and mentorship at a higher level. But Brandee, thank you so much for being on with us. And we're going to write another book together. This is the first sequel of 3. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be some great stuff. So thank you so much for being on. And we wish I tell people your job is to become better at what you do every day. And whether you're a sales leader or not, take other people with you. Share your gifts, right?
Right.
Important thing to do. That's what makes the world a better place. So thanks. Appreciate it, Brandee. And we'll see y'all later. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.